afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being interested in the MPO agenda items, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Today is, I'm Pete Sines, the chair and mayor of the city of Laredo. Today is May 20th, 2019. We're at City Council Chambers. It's 1:32 p.m. And this is the Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Committee, otherwise known as the MPO. So I ask for roll call, please.
Mayor Pete Sines.
Present.
Webb County Judge Tano E. Tijerina.
Present.
Councilmember Norma Nelly Vialma.
Present.
Councilmember Dr. Martha Martinez.
Present.
Councilmember George Alkilt.
Present.
County Commissioner Jesse Gonzalez. County Commissioner John Galo. And TxDOT District Engineer David M. Salazar Jr.
Present.
For the record, you do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Moving forward, citizens' comment. We have one person that signed up, Mr. Jerry Schwebel. You have 3 minutes, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the MPO. I'm here wearing 2 hats. First hat, I'd like to extend an invitation on behalf of IBC for our upcoming conversation series that I think may be relevant and important to each and every one of you all. It's going to touch on the topic of the wrap-up of the legislative session, everything that's been accomplished here in this last legislative session. Last month, we had a session on transportation where we had the Commissioner Bruce Bugg, and also we have Terry Canales, who's the chairman of the House Transportation Committee. These are topics that are relevant to our community, and I think important areas, especially with transportation and planning. So I'm going to pass out these invitations to you all. We live stream from Austin to all of our bank locations, so you all are welcome to join us, and anyone else from the respective entities, the county or the city, or all of our council members are very welcome to join us. The second hat I'm wearing is that also, some of you may be aware, I'm a member of the Border Trade Advisory Council together with our mayor. We serve on that appointed positions on behalf of the governor, and we continue to work on our border transportation master plan. And we've had stakeholders meetings, very, very effective stakeholders meeting. We have some more to come, but it's important that also, we have representation from the council and from the county and from members of this group, so that we have a good cross-section of the community stakeholders and provide as much input for this border plan, which is an 18-month plan that we're working on. So tomorrow we'll be in Austin. We'll be addressing it at the next meeting and ongoing meetings from henceforth. So just a word of support and encouragement for you to participate in these events as well. So I'll pass out these flyers and these for the conversation series to you all.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Schwab. And we'll see you tomorrow in Austin for that meeting.
Yes, sir.
Moving on to
Thank you, Mr. Schwab.
items requiring policy committee action. We have 4A, approval of the minutes of the meeting held on April 15, 2019. And what says the commission, the committee? Is there a motion that we approve, or do we have any changes or additions?
So moved, there's not any changes.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A second of Dr. Martha Martinez. Discussion, none heard. All those in favor say aye. All those against, none heard. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 4B, receive public testimony and approve a motion to accept the ranking of firms that submitted proposals in response to the request for qualifications issued for the development of the bicycle master plan. Approve the selection of a professional services provider and authorize staff to enter into negotiations. Ms. Guerra?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This item, the MPO initiated an RFQ sometime back for a bicycle master plan. The intention of the bicycle master plan is to review our current facilities and provide us with policies and infrastructure projects in cost estimates, phasing, for short, long, midterm, and long-term improvements for our area in order to provide for current and future bicycle needs for our community.
Okay, so
We
that,
received 3 submittals in response to our RFQ, and those firms were from Nelson Nygaard, Asakura Robinson, and Copenhagenized Design Co. They're listed according to how the selection committee ranked them. And so at this time, we would request that the policy committee select and authorize staff to enter into negotiations.
Do you have a ranking and scoring?
Absolutely, it's in your packet. The,
Can we put
we
that on
have
the
all the
Elmo?
scores.
Is that right? Please put that on the Elmo, please.
Sure.
just tell them. The A portion.
There's a listing of all the members of the selection committee. We had members including from TxDOT, from our traffic safety, the city traffic safety department, from transit, from community development, from the planning department, from the South Texas Development Council, and from our school districts. If you can see, those are the raw scores on behalf of the selection committee, and they were ranked. Nelson Nygaard was ranked the top firm. Asakura came in second, and the Copenhagenized, and I'm sure I'm murdering those names, third.
Early this week.
Did, why didn't, El Metro get a vote? Why didn't they get to score?
They did, they just didn't submit.
Oh,
They were invited to participate, however, they did not submit scores.
okay, and have you had an opportunity to, review the bids, or I guess the folks that bid on this?
Mhm.
And, based on, I realize you designated Mr. Vidauri,
Mhm.
On your behalf, but, do you have any counsel for this commission?
I mean, all of the firms are exceedingly, well qualified. The second firm, Nelson Nygaard, they had I think the only firm that had local, that they are partnering with some local folks. Let me see my notes.
Well, okay, I mean, I was just gonna use your analysis here. My motion is that we go with the committee's, ranking as is, with Nelson Nygaard.
Give us a motion, is there a second? And I would second that for discussion purposes, a discussion. None heard, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? None heard, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item.
Thank you, Ms. Gebhardt.
Thank you.
And thank you for the people that participated in that committee, selection committee. I know it takes time and effort. Moving on. B, C, discussion with possible action on presentation by Abrazo, partners on the City of Laredo's Boulevard of the Americas project. Yes, please come forward.
Mayor, before we get moving on this item, Agenda C, I'd like to state that as for the record, TxDOT is not prepared to speak on this item. This item was not voted on the technical committee agenda, nor was it presented. It was added onto the agenda without our prior knowledge. I don't know what the possible action on it is going to be for it, but we are not prepared, nor will we be voting on this item.
Okay, I know you contacted me, Mr. Salazar, David, Mr. Salazar, and as far as the legality or the procedural aspect of it, if action should be taken in light of the fact that it didn't come to the technical, is it legal? And maybe
Absolutely.
we need to review our bylaws.
The bylaws and the public participation plan require that the technical committee give a recommendation on the final approval for plans, policies, programs, or procedures. And this is,
Who is the technical?
the technical committee is comprised of 22 members, and they're comprised of most of our stakeholder and partners, and it's TxDOT,
The private sector as well?
They have some private sector involvement as well. I don't think I have a listing, do I, right here, of the technical committee? But it's got transit, the city, members from the engineering
county as
department,
well,
traffic, the county. We have some other county members, the South Texas Development Council, UISD, the school districts. We have some freight representatives from our freight community, from the different railroads.
Okay, so in essence, if it goes forward, we're still within.
Oh, so what I would like to add, Mayor, if I can, I think we're kind of losing sight of what the sole purpose of the MPO is. Basically, you know, if you sum it up, it's made up of two different committees, a policy committee and the technical committee. The technical committee, again, is they're gonna review the technical review, professional review on work programs, policy recommendations, and transportation planning needs. The technical committee should review issues for accuracy and advise the policy committee on recommended actions. Now, the policy committee, the role of the policy committee, again, is for approval of these actions. Now, the Metropolitan Board is put together because they're responsible for identifying local transportation needs in cooperation with the Texas Department of Transportation, following a continuing comprehensive and cooperative transportation planning. The MPO does not have the authority to elicit or explain or direct TxDOT on certain items or issues. They can certainly bring forth and recommend projects, but the MPO does not have the authority to direct nor TxDOT or another government agency a direct order or direct fact, a design issue, any kind of concern. So we need to continue and not lose sight of what we're here for. We're here to identify projects in conjunction with the Uniform Transportation Plan, but the MPO does not have the authority to direct TxDOT.
Okay, let me ask you this. Yeah, we understand that, at least I do. And if there's any other uncertainty, I guess, by any of the members, please feel free. You know, say we do, you know, what can we approve then? Certain monies belong to the MPO committee. Do we have direct discretion, full discretion on those monies? And with those monies, can we still not direct TxDOT to help out, or at least to direct us in whichever way? You know, how does that work? You know, I can understand maybe money's coming from you all, but other monies that come from the MPO. Yes, Doctor.
So this item has possibly a requirement of action, but possibly not a requirement of action. Is that correct?
That's correct. That was my first question, that I
So
was
we
not
have,
prepared, no way to
so-
take action on it.
So we have the ability to at least present and then possibly try to find some way of moving forward through this. Is that accurate?
And let it be noted, and my concern is that this was not in the technical committee, nor was I aware of it till Friday evening that this item showed up. I would have been more prepared. We are not prepared.
No, and that's understandable. And of course, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, TxDOT is huge in our decision-making too, because you're the experts that at least I kind of rely upon.
And to answer your question, Mayor, Category 2, Category 7, Category 9, those are funds that are appropriated to TxDOT through the city that you can generally vote on which direction you would like to take those monies.
Mr. Mayor, may I be heard?
Yes, sir.
You know, I guess to address a couple of your points, my understanding is that this matter has been discussed extensively with TxDOT. And we in fact sought the intervention of our elected officials, in particular our state senator, and given politics what it is, she was able to very successfully redirect TxDOT so that they could in fact work hand in hand with their partners on the MPO. And your point is well taken. I realize that you all are not our staff and we can't direct you to do or not do certain things at this ground level. However, as we've had to do on multiple other occasions, we've had to seek intervention from the governor's office, from the commissioner's office, from you know, basically your entire chain of command, not necessarily directly because of you, but the predecessors and other, what I would just kind of, I would label as text dot or bureaucratic dysfunction. And so I'm taking note of your point, and I think we all do, but we're also looking for ways in which we can work together so that we don't need to go and run all those traps. It's a tremendous waste of time. And to our, you know, TxDOT family here in the audience, I mean, you guys, y'all live here too, your kids go to school here. I'm sure you want your kiddos to be able to get safely to and from wherever they're going, whether they're in a car or in a bus or on a bike or on foot. And so, I mean, we're in it together. So I'm hoping that that can set the tone for the conversation that you all have already had previously with the folks working on the 4.5 blocks. What do we call it, 5 blocks or 4 blocks? What do we call them? 4 blocks? The 4 blocks? Plazas of the Americas.
Yes, I'm sorry, excuse me. Do you yield the floor?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, additionally, had this previously gone and before a committee, way before?
No. As I'm aware of my tenure, this item has not gone before a committee in my time. Am I aware of a state senator being approached about this issue? I am not. Am I aware of the situation? Yes. We've had conversations with the consultant in our office. We've had several viable solutions that have come forth, none of them which we have approved nor agreed upon. It is something that we are working at. We're working forward to. It is within state right of way. We're going to do our due diligence for the safety of the traveling public, and I appreciate the Councilman's comments about working together. I would love to work together with the MPO. We would do what it is that you want us to do and work with you. I think a lot of these issues can be resolved outside of this facility in an office scenario, in a meeting. We can have those meetings rather than bringing it here forth to the table.
Would it be fair, though, to say that we could vote on action of saying that this is something that we as an MPO find as a viable and necessary project?
No, it would not be fair, and I'm going to tell you why. There are certain concerns that we have, and now we're fully into the discussion of the item, but we'll move forward. We have certain concerns about the designs that have been brought forth, not only because of the traveling public, but because what it's going to do to the timing. That area is very, very congested. Something of this nature in this area is although beautiful and scope and design is not functional for what we have in the area down there. Am I saying that we're not looking at anything? No, there could be an option that we have not seen yet. That has not been brought forth to me right now.
Sir, but what you said was that our position here as an MPO is to actually identify projects that we believe and deem to be of merit. And so what we're here doing is finding projects that we find of merit, potentially.
Yeah. So I appreciate your thoughts, Mr. Martinez, and here's where we're at. This discussion that we're having now should have been ironed out at the technical committee. A solid, viable plan favorable to TxDOT in the city should have been presented, brought forth where we could vote a yea or nay on it. That has not happened. We do not have a viable solution that we agreed upon. So
An action we could take is to send it to committee, for instance?
I would say that it has to be reviewed upon. It has to be something that we have to be agreed upon by both entities and both parties involved, and at this point, we are not there.
If I may. Ms. Guerra, you mentioned that there was 22 in the technical committee.
No, there's 22 members.
What is an average that you get into the technical committee? Because I'm
attendance?
kind of in agreement with both sides here, but there's a certain point that Mr. Salazar makes a great point, because it seems like sometimes we get up here and it becomes a Jerry Springer show, and it gets a little bit long-winded and it gets long on some of these agenda items. The technical committee is there for a reason. So my question is, out of the 22, exactly what is being done? Because from there, it's supposed to be coming to us, and basically for us to be able to vote on it, yea or nay. And I know we're gonna have some discussions, and that's part of it, and that's just part of who we are, and that's part of what we should do. But when it gets time to becoming a different kind of show than what we should be having, that's where I start kind of going, okay, so what is the technical committee doing? How many, first of all, let's go ahead and answer the question. How many, out of the 22, how many are showing up?
On average, anywhere between 5 and 10. I would say on average.
I think it's important that if we have a technical committee and who is the one that's actually, putting them on? Who's members? So who's actually, how do they,
It's outlined in our bylaws. In our bylaws and the membership of the technical committee is outlined in that document.
how do we make that technical committee stronger for us not to avoid a lot of these situations?
We can choose to amend the bylaws to either amend or increase, add members. But they're by position, they're
I
not
don't
by
think we need to
person.
add members, that's for sure.
They're, like I said, they're by position, they're not by person. It's not a person being appointed, it's let's say the
It's my
traffic
question.
director.
Who's appointing them? How many, do we all have a representation there?
Yeah, the city, it's by organization. You'll have the city, the county, the school districts, the freight,
I just think that maybe we need to have them, maybe even have some kind of discussion with them to get a little bit more technical in our technical committee.
Well, all items that are plans, programs, policies, or procedures that require action of the technical committee do go before the technical committee.
Who's the chair?
The chair of the technical committee is the planning director,
Which is right now yourself?
currently, of the technical committee.
May I
Yeah,
ask
that's
a quick
correct.
question?
Absolutely,
Who decides what goes to committee?
exactly.
How is that decided?
It goes by the bylaws of what is required to have action from the technical committee, which is anything that requires is gonna have action on the part of the policy committee that's a plan, program, policy, or procedure. So those are always reviewed by the technical committee. Items that are presentations, discussions, the policy committee is free to discuss any items that it chooses to. However, once is there a plan involved and they want to adopt a plan, then we would probably want to take it to the technical
Ms.
committee.
Guerra, so this particular issue here, where we actually have a presentation, not a plan,
Yeah.
just a presentation regarding what we see as a viable, or what we see as a necessity for our downtown, would that meet the requirements of having to go
No,
to the
I mean,
technical committee?
presentations don't always go to the technical committee. For the most part, we try to accommodate the technical committee for all presentations that go to the policy committee, but many times there isn't action on presentations. It's just, information, you want to introduce something
So,
to the policy.
if I may, out of all the items that are being submitted by whomever, how many actually get on this agenda?
How many
How many do you reject in the technical committee?
I don't know that we reject any items that want to be, like if they ask to be put on the technical committee, we don't reject them. This came after the technical committee happened, this Abrazos item, or Abrazo Partners item, the City of Laredo Boulevard, and it was simply as a presentation, discussing with possible action on a presentation.
I think
So-
what's scaring the text dot is possible action. I mean, if we would have just left this discussion, it would have been a little different. But I think what's scaring them is that,
It could have been submitted Judge, it could have been submitted on presentations as well, on their item 5.
anyway, that's just kind of I think we kind of just need to maybe
But
button
not
it
all,
up a little bit
it
more.
doesn't, there is no requirement that all action items have to go to the technical
Judge, may I
committee.
be heard?
Oh, excuse me.
I'm sorry, the bylaws and the public participation plan does not require that the policy committee agenda be a mirror, or the technical committee agenda be a mirror of the policy committee agenda. They need not mirror one another. Simply, the items that go to the technical committee have to be those items upon which that are policies, plans, programs, or procedures. Programs, you're familiar with the MTP, where all the projects are listed, the TIP, the bylaws, the public participation plan. If we're gonna, the UPWP, our budget, all of those must go to the technical committee to have a recommendation.
Very good. Counselor?
Thank you, sir. So is there like a minimum amount of, board members that have to meet in order to make a quorum?
No. For the
And-
technical committee?
Yeah,
No, it's silent on that point.
okay, and is it mostly, tech stop personnel, private sector, city people? Like, how would you describe?
That are attending?
Yes,
For the most part, it's city folks, transit, and tech stop.
okay.
That's with a smattering of county and a school district.
And the decisions that roll out of there with regard to support or table a particular project, is it, I mean, does the committee wade off into the weeds and get very technical as the name
I mean,
presumes
you know,
it does?
we go over all the items in detail. I don't think we've ever had an item be tabled by the technical committee.
Now,
Not in
can
my memory.
information, as Dr. Martinez suggested, can information, or even action, for instance, like, you know, we will like to charge the TRB with sorting something out. Is that common? Have you seen that take place, or is it uncommon?
It doesn't happen all that often.
Is it against the bylaws for us to contemplate something and then direct the TRB to, you know,
No.
debate and chew on it?
I don't think so. I would think that would be allowed.
Okay. Well,
Very good. Okay, let's.
One last thing. So, sir, if I may ask, to your point, you're saying because there's not a plan yet, it shouldn't go to the technical committee. Is that your point?
No,
But it
that's-
would be okay to do the presentation, but you would you would not want to vote or take action on it. Is that correct?
Judge, if I may, that's correct. There is no item, I do not mind a presentation. I don't want an item to take action on as stated here. And again, the technical committee, for the city, it's the Laredo City Planner, the General Manager of the City Transit System, Laredo Director of Traffic Safety, Laredo Airport Manager, Laredo City Engineer, Laredo Bridge Director. Those are the ones in the technical committee that belong to the city. And again, you have county representatives, state representatives, federal representatives, private sector representatives, and school system representatives. Again, I think we're losing sight of what the MPO is here to do. And I allude to that in the item that follows, item number D. The use of hot bays for smooth overlays, possible action and discussion. That is an item that needs to be reviewed at the technical committee. If it's not in the grand scheme of the big picture of what Laredo is trying to accomplish here, I don't know how an item like that makes it on the agenda. The technical committee needs to do a good job of making sure that they provide good recommendations. What I would offer, Mayor, is I could get a workshop for metropolitan organizations down here, so we can all kind of go through a workshop together and see what our exact roles are.
Is that on the 4-block area? I'm sorry, I had to take a phone call. Are we
No,
talking-
that's in the entire Webb County area.
Yeah, personally, I think, yeah, and that was part of the conversation. You know, these are bigger projects, especially the 4-block area. I mean, that's a huge, major project that we need local input. And I would welcome, you know, more review by the technical committee and others as well, because we need that project and we all need to be happy with it. And so anyway, you know, whatever.
If I may.
Yes, sir, go.
Just continue chairing before I
Okay,
yield the
yes, sir, go
floor.
ahead.
I believe that it's, before I yield the chair, I should say. I believe that we should just listen to the presentation. They're already fixing, or I think they're already here to
Yeah,
make
they're
the
here.
presentation. I believe it would behoove us, and, you know.
Yeah, so we get a better idea, if it's okay with you, Mr. Salazar. Yeah, they're here, yes, yeah, now I'm currently back on the chair here, so
Now I
please.
yield the chair.
Yes, sir, thank you.
But we can put things on the tip, though, right? I mean, aren't we responsible for?
Yes, but I think that's,
So we set this as a priority to be funded, yeah, and plugged it into the tip.
it's gonna be voted on, yes.
Yeah, it's gonna get voted on. So maybe a more artfully pled agenda item would have been, you know, discussion possible action to place project X on the tip.
And if that were to be the outcome, then that item would go through the tip process, which would go to the technical committee, it would go to introduction, it would initiate a comment period, there would be the lengthy comment period, then it would go back to the technical committee for a final vote, and then again, final vote for the policy committee. So, and we have that happen quite a bit. The policy committee discusses projects and then directs staff to include them into our planning documents, and it goes through the whole
Public process
regular
of,
process.
of making, sending it down so that it can percolate back up.
That's correct.
Correct. Let me, Roberto Rodriguez, just for the record, text that. Let me just add, when it goes to the tip, it already has a funding allocated. It already has the money, how is it gonna be paid and for the later year.
That's correct. Funding
So,
must,
Yeah,
funding
it already
must
has their funds in,
must be identified.
category, funding category for the construction.
How do you all then give light to policy decisions we would like to make? Like, how do you make those materialize?
Okay, well, there's, like Mr. Salazar mentioned, there are several categories, for example, category 2, which is our MPO mobility funds. We prioritize a project, which we have been doing in Loop 20, where most of our category 2 funds are
When you say
allocated.
we, you mean
MPO.
MPO?
Has been prioritizing, we've been going for a couple of years, going back and forth on those projects. On Loop 20 or US 59. The other one is category 7, which is an MPO fund.
We just have to, let's just hypothetically say we all love the project, the Laredo's Boulevard of the Americas project. And we want to put it on the tip. Then at that point, what TxDOT says, okay, this fits within category 7 funding.
Well, we
And
only,
there's this much money there to be used that you could program over a certain amount of years. Are we all expected to go and do all that,
we only
rabbit
provide
hunting
what,
on our own?
we only provide what the categories of each funding category can be used for. It's up to the MPO to decide. If, in this case, for example, for something like this, let's say they decide to use category 7, which is an MPO funds.
Mhm.
That's, right now is completely allocated for the HR road and road teacher, all the funding we have. And there's also category 9, which is transportation enhancement. I guess Vanessa can go more into details. They have to apply, the respective departments, and they'll get the funding for it. But it's not for TxDOT to tell the MPO which funding. I mean, we can just tell you what the funding categories can be used for. In this case, for something of a bicycle pad, it can be, for example, category 9, but it has to go through the
So,
process application.
How does it work in other MPOs? Does TxDOT provide technical assistance on how to take MPO policy and convert it into action?
Not
guess-
that I'm aware of.
I guess it depends on the issue at hand or what's been discussed or set up, but bottom line, if it's gonna get in the tip, just to sum it up, it has to have funds associated to it. Right now, what we do have for the city of Laredo is category 2, 7, and 9. If the MPO board so chooses that that's the direction they wanna take those monies for, it would come forth, we would vote on it, and if it's all approved, we would move forward. TxDOT would agree with that, but again, when you're dealing with a TxDOT right-of-way project on our facility, that's a little different. We have to do our due diligence that we're meeting all regulations, federal highway regulations, TxDOT rules and guidelines. We have to make sure that we're sure that it's on there. My job would be to come forth to you and tell you, hey, this is what we have, this is what will work, this is what not work, and then we'll come to consensus on that. But to answer your question, again, is in order for it to get on the tip, it has to be funded. If the MPO so chooses to take some of those dollars from those 3 categories, yes, it can be done.
But let me just follow up right quick before we take Dr. Martinez. To get on the tip, we need the technical review people as well?
Yes,
It needs to be
Okay.
funded.
that's correct.
Okay, yes, Doctor?
I guess the bottom line that we're trying to figure out is, and again, this is maybe a policy thing where a workshop would be beneficial, and I welcome the opportunity, being one of the newer members to the committee. But if we have a project that we deem to be a viable project that we think is in line with what we want, it seems that this process isn't set up, at least as it's laid out, for us to have any input as to what can be placed. It seems that somehow or another, if TxDOT doesn't want it to be so, or deems it not so, that you're saying that it's very difficult for us to actually change that. All we're saying is, if we find something that we think is a priority, how do we get TxDOT to buy into it to a certain extent? Not that we can direct you, but to sit down at the table and try to maximize this project. That's the bottom line.
That's a discussion far beyond length of time or what we can do here. I would gladly visit with you, any one of you in my office, to go over that process. But again, the sole purpose of TechStat at this MPO meeting is to work with you to move forward on the projects that's viable to the solution, recommend and assist you in the direction that you want to take.
Yeah, the summary, if we can recap, or at least I'll try, is whatever project we deem appropriate by this body here, we can direct TechStot, I guess, to find what category of funds, see if it qualifies to begin with, and if the funds are available, because the category is there, but the funds may not be available, like stated by Mr. Rodriguez. But if they are, then at that point, you can say it's something that we can deal with, and then the technical review committee would review it and then bring it back to the MPO. Is that basically the way it works?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go
Just to
ahead.
finish it off, I'm sorry. It might be conducive on our part, especially for the new members of the MPO, to be able to realize and find out how much monies and which categories. And maybe you could do some kind of, and I'm not talking about presentation, I'm just talking about giving us up here an opportunity to be able to see, we have some new board members that I'm not sure, it took me almost 2 years and I'm going on my 5th year, and I'm still learning some of these acronyms. And so if it's all possible to be able to realize and see what categories, what monies are there, and where can we go, because we're up here blindly and sometimes, and I would not want that to happen. I want us to make some great decisions and real decisions. But going back to the question that I had in hand, how many actually get tabled in the technical committee? And you said none. That concerns me.
Yeah.
Because there's some that should not be up here yet. There's some that still need to be worked out, the kinks, in the technical committee before it gets up here. That way we don't have to work it out in front of the public, because it does become a little long-winded after a while here. And so I would address that. I think that's important. So if we could just come up with some kind of, something for us. So I don't know.
Judge, if I may, one final thing, Mayor. So your CAT 2 Mobility Fund money, which is approximately about $130 million, that's tied into the Loop 20 project. Your CAT 7, which is the MPO money that's given from division to MPOs, that's about $24 million. That's all tied into that Child Losing to project. Now, you do get some transportation funds, about $300,000 a year for the city. They've been doing bus stops. Now, if you find a priority bigger than the Loop 20 project or with our child, by all means, we can come forth again and redistribute those dollars.
Okay. So it seems like money's very tight. Okay, let's proceed. I think, yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, all right, Mario Peña with Abrazo Partners, and we'll try to not be long-winded here. We'll try to keep it brief. For the sake of the folks who may not be familiar with the process that led us to this point, we did start with just a brief overview, just a couple of slides on how we got here. So in 2015, the City of Laredo, with the help of with the American Institute of Architects local section, a group of architects hosted Laredo's first public design workshop for charrette. Over the course of 3 weeks, we held, I think, 3 or 4 public design workshops, beginning from the public coming in and just sketching on maps, basically visioning, telling us the public's vision of what they wanted for the 4 blocks. Over 100 people showed up to each meeting. It was an incredible turnout. And at the end of it, we came out with a vision, a name for the area, and the impetus to begin this master planning process, which I do want to remind everyone that what we're presenting here today is a master plan. It is not a construction document set for construction. It is master planning. It is an execution of a vision into a master plan, and all of the concurrent refining of details still have to go on after this. Just some quick snippets of the.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
And if you could just to underscore that, because the name to us lay people, master plan, makes the layperson think, oh, okay, well, they've already mapped out, turning radiuses and width of crosswalks, but master plan is realistically, in your language, is a very broad brushstroke. It's a concept. Is that to be fair?
It does have a fair level of
Detail.
detail, because at this point, there's a survey we're working out whether the vision fits in the parameters that we're given.
But the technical minutia is not part of a master plan.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
What would you call the technical minutia?
Construction documents.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so just some snippets of what the public, told us they wanted in the area. They wanted to activate this space. They wanted to have Laredo reuse the space, both for public action and as a signal, international signal of what Laredo means.
And who owns the 4 blocks themselves?
City of Laredo.
The actual green spaces between the roadway is the city of Laredo, we believe.
But I think there's some
It's our
easements
understanding,
kept by TxDOT, I think. Didn't you all reserve easements?
There's some easement or, just inside the sidewalks for the placement of, directional signs, guidance signs by TxDOT. That is correct.
And if I recall too, I think, with potential extensions, to take more property, and so when you build, whenever you all construct, obviously, we gotta see exactly what rights TxDOT has to even more land within the green area. I think they even kept some of that, for future expansion. So anyway.
For an additional, left turn lane, I believe.
Right, okay.
That's correct.
So have we always owned them? Have we always owned, when did we get ownership of the 4 blocks?
Like 2015.
Yeah, when I
This-
first ran
this
for
charrette
mayor, that was
was-
one of my goals.
this
and
charrette
it
was,
took a while to get the title in, yeah.
This charrette was initiated by the anticipation of receiving those properties from TxDOT.
So historically, they belong to TxDOT.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
So these were the, I guess the final guidelines that drove us to what the final design became. So it captures Laredo's spirit, it tells Laredo's story, it creates an emotion as for all the millions of people that cross our international boundary every day, and it becomes memorable. So with that, the design took shape in reestablishing these 4.5 blocks. There's a small plaza there on the north side, which is that triangular shape, into a gesture to our history in becoming 4 plazas, beginning with the Plaza Azteca on the south side, Plaza de la Noria, which there initially was, historically there was an old water hole there, Plaza Cuatro Caminos at the intersection of 83 and 35, Plaza del Abrazo, which is just north of Victoria, between Victoria and Houston, and then Plaza Uno, which is that first mile, right, as I-35 begins and on into the rest of the United States. So this is it, so I'll let.
So, just to.
Your name for the record, please?
Sorry, Monica Guajardo, I'm with Abrazo Partners. And just to review some of the major components that make up our master plan design, it was the information that we learned, the information, all the input that we received from the 2015 charrette, and carried this into this design. Like the major components are, like Mario already started, it's the reintroduction of the block system, of the plaza system, which originally the city of Laredo was founded and was laid out on a plaza system. Another component, a major component, is the introduction of the medians to make it into a grand boulevard of sorts in the style of Avenida Reforma, Champs-Élysées. These medians are going to resolve many issues for us, we believe. First of all, we have an 80-foot wide, right now, a highway on each side of the block. So the median would break down the scale. It would break down the scale for the person driving through. It would give it a nice scale of, of coming into a city versus proceeding onto a highway. And also, it would be advantageous for the pedestrians and to encourage the pedestrian traffic.
But what you said is important there, because it ceases to become highway for all practical purposes there at the half block, the triangle, what did you call it, Plaza Uno?
Plaza Uno.
Plaza Uno. And I realize, I'm sure, TxDOT has this very compartmentalized, designation that this is all still a highway. However, it loses from a practical standpoint, its characterization as a highway because traffic is now going much slower. There's all these lights. It's more like TxDOT's, vision of a highway, the way Loop 20 is a loop, but it's not really. It's got all these lights and stops. So this quits being a highway. Now there are some, eastbound movements onto Highway 83 that, it's going
So
through
hold that thought because
our city.
What's your reaction to that? The fact that now it's not a highway, we want to convert the purpose of this to something different?
And then add to that, what if we designated Highway 83 business route being Loop 20 so that we don't have to have all of this highway traffic, if you will, coming onto this very, metropolitan neck of the woods.
So Bamis, I applaud you. It's a beautiful layout. It's very appealing to the eye. The interstate up to the bridge is still an interstate. We still have to meet federal standards. We still have to meet federal guidelines, whether it's a business or U.S. highway. My only question is the influx of pedestrian traffic. I know you guys are architects, designers.
Urban planners.
Is there a engineering design firm that's looking at the amount of timing that it's gonna take for somebody to walk across a pedestrian? How much time is it gonna back up traffic further now beyond interstate where it's going a little bit further back? Has that traffic impact analysis been run? Because that's something that we would definitely be interested in. Anytime you introduce a pedestrian and additional crosswalk, of course your timing goes off. Once you hit that ped button, then you gotta cycle through 4 more cycles of traffic, so that's backing up traffic more, especially during peak hours, which is afternoon around 5 and mid-morning about 8.
Well,
between 8 and 9.
currently there are existing crosswalks already.
Correct.
And lights.
That is correct. But now
So-
you're
Are they
introducing
not
2
timed for
more.
a pedestrian to cross now?
What's that?
Are they not timed for pedestrian to cross now?
I'm not sure. I don't have the traffic impact analysis on.
Well, we
Let
do
me-
have a traffic consultant on board that's gonna provide us with,
Okay, so
any
we can provide that data.
estimates.
Now, the second part of the
By the
question.
way, I crossed over on my bike the other day and, hit the button and they do function. I mean, pedestrians currently are crossing right now as we speak, albeit they're using TxDOT's non-pedestrian friendly design. So there's no pedestrian islands, there's no real speed mitigation going on in anticipation of the intersection. It's just kind of, con el Jesús en la boca, getting across as fast as you can.
But that can
what's
be
there
confirmed
right
with
now.
data. But I'm also interested in your second part of that question. What impact, what are your thoughts initially on rerouting US business?
I would like to think that you're focusing in on a heavily congested area that's probably on the top 100 areas in the state. Introducing another viable, how should I quote this? Introducing another parable into the formula where you're drawing more pedestrians in there. I applaud the extra lane for the scenic side, but it was any kind of value given to maybe joining the 2 in the middle, maybe opening beyond, or was this just the additional lane on the outside?
You mean join the 2 roadways toward the middle? Well, there was discussion about that, yeah, but this is again the fulfillment of the public's vision of the area, of course, right?
Okay, but how about that Business 83?
Yeah,
Prong of
like
your
like
question.
other cities have done, or TxDOT has done this in other cities rather, where they designate, business routes, but then they have the main highway component, bypass congested areas like this so that you kind of, two birds, one stone. You divert the traffic more directly, one bird, and you uncongest by no longer having this be, Highway 83's, principal point of ingress and egress.
Is that something doable in your?
And then also reclassifying this as not being an interstate, given how much it just slows down. Like I'd like to think I've been on a handful of interstates in my lifetime, and very few of them have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of traffic lights block to block to block to block.
And I think what the issue here, Councilman, is that, yeah, we can certainly reroute a different route as a business, we can do that. But what makes this a little more tougher situation is that this is the only bridge that I think a lot of people are traveling in passenger vehicles in and out of Mexico. The import, I mean, a lot of them shy away from world trade and.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, but they're going north and.
Forgive the interruption.
So
Okay.
going to Zapata.
Well, yeah, and I think the data would help us out with that. Go
I
ahead.
think that is very important, but I used to live in Brownsville, Texas. And in Brownsville, they have a clear now starts Expressway 83 and now ends Expressway 83. And it's going towards the bridge. And so Brownsville has that set up previously where it's more of a residential / commercial type area. The roads are city roads, if you will. And then about a mile up, and then it says now starts Expressway 83, and you basically, it changes from this type of traffic to an expressway, kind of like we do. I don't see why that can't be applied to this particular area, and it is also one of the highest ingress and egresses through Brownsville as you're coming across the new bridge and going into Mexico. That already exists in other municipalities, and TxDOT has already done that before.
Is that the port of entry that's got a pedestrian walk that flies over? Is that it? Or is that in?
That's the.
So that's another option if we're worried about pedestrians. I've seen a pedestrian bridge that flies over.
There is
That'd be an
one
option.
pedestrian bridge that flies over further down, but there's actually crossings that happen there, right at the entry point. I think it's Los Tomates, I think that's what it's called, the bridge Los Tomates.
That's really a good solution here. I mean, a pedestrian bridge would actually be good to take away traffic, pedestrians from the actual traffic.
So TxDOT's agreeing to put that in?
I think it's a no discussion.
No
action. I think
I would like to hear from also, if you don't mind, Mr. Ramon Chavez.
Honorable Mayor and members of the committee, Ramon Chavez, City Engineer. Just one point of information for the committee. As part of the outlet shops of Laredo, we did have a traffic impact analysis that was provided to us with some current data and future average daily traffic that was included and included some of this area. So that's something that's been provided to their traffic consultant and to the group here.
Okay, one suggestion
I-
about that
I'm
bridge, and I mentioned it to, some of you folks. The Chav, with that venue, that place there with a flagpole, huge flagpole, it's got that BBVA, I think, and I think it's for sale, I hear. If we're talking now, overpasses for pedestrians in particular, maybe connecting from that part, and it kind of lends itself for a huge gallery on top, and connecting to the plazas without having pedestrians. Huh?
It's not for sale.
It's not for sale now?
No, we tried to buy it.
Okay. Okay, anyway, just a thought.
Mayor, if I may inquire of Mr. Chavez also, since you mentioned traffic. Well, I have my office right across from it, so several of my staff members have been in accidents, and very often PD goes there to look at our cameras to see how the impact happens. So I would like to see, I don't know if it's already incorporated in this data, the traffic accidents, so that we can take that into account, the visibility or speed in conjunction with this project, please. Because we cross con el Jesús en la boca every time we cross this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we do have data. Okay. Yes, please proceed.
Because the real issue isn't so much the actual design within the plazas that are there. I guess the TxDOT issues would be as it relates to the crosswalks. But the people are already using the crosswalks, and this will be my maybe third time, plus having participated in the charrettes. So I'm becoming more and more aware with this project. But what I understand is that through these through these improvements, that pedestrian crossings can become more safe than what they are right now, and that in there is how a traffic engineer would dial in, allowing for vehicular movement, and at the same time, carving out little windows so that pedestrians and cyclists can cross over just that much more safely, as opposed to the Frogger game that currently is
I think there's
happening.
another point too, council members, now it's being designed to attract even more, to have events even more within that four.
But you could do that over here next to the bridge at the southern terminus, where frankly things are really slow. Like the movements towards down Highway 83 have already occurred. And if you've ever spent much time at this plaza closest to the bridge, you can understand just how slow going things are.
But to reach that plaza, some people may come from Matamoros and have to walk all the way down to the to the end. So anyway, just a thought.
Well, to proceed, the median's part of the objective was to make the pedestrian crossing feel a little bit safer, more inviting, as well as other mechanisms for traffic, for high traffic or speed reduction, like possibly raising of the crosswalks, possibly between the blocks, not so much in the northbound, southbound lanes, but emphasizing by via of maybe pavers or different color paving that you're entering kind of a pedestrian territory, be careful, slow down. I know, we want pedestrians. If it's a highway, you want to minimize pedestrians. I think these are the two clashing views.
To hold that thought too, and I think as a commissioner or as council, I think we need to decide, and I think I know where we're going with it. I think we want to invite people, but early on, I thought it was going to be just, que bonito, just drive through the 4-block area without necessarily inviting people getting down and stepping onto the plazas.
Well, it's about that as well, but it's also about trying to restitch a
But
little
your
bit of the
position is that
fabric.
we need to invite, correct? I mean, that's what you're selling through your project?
Well, and Mayor, I mean, you raise a good point, which is
It's a
whether.
safe crossing.
It's a safe crossing from, Frank Rodofsky crossing. It's really, the idea here is to provide the pedestrian a way of safely crossing to the east.
But to enjoy the plazas, correct? To spend time there at the plazas?
Well, once you cross into the plaza, you're safe.
Yeah, but one thing is currently the number versus, we want more, double or triple the number, because it's attractive, we're calling attention to.
We're really not saying that, no.
No?
I mean, not in the master plan. The master plan is to beautify the floor blocks and also be able to look at a way of bringing people across.
So that's a decision I think council needs to make.
Well,
Do we want events held there or?
well, I don't necessarily know whether or not we do or we don't. I think from, an urban planning standpoint, what our own experts have told us, specifically Jeff Speck, in the composition and formulation of our comp plan, which we all voted in favor for, they're telling us that when TxDOT put this highway in way back in the day, they basically drove this giant, divide between the El Azteca neighborhood and the downtown. And just like every other city in America that's had a highway shoved through the middle of it, you can see the economic depression on one side of the tracks, and you can see, in this case, it's actually on both sides, but that's for independent reasons, the mall and peso devaluation, et cetera. But look at where Azteca is today. I mean, it's a, it's a den of crime. There's not a whole bunch going on. And so the point that Speck made was, if you can find a safe way to reconnect this, segregated community with its center, then you will be able to, stimulate
And I have no issue with that.
the economy.
Attracting people, But if we are, we gotta handle it properly.
But not to stay and like necessarily hang out, but to get into these centers of commerce, to get where there are jobs, to get where there is a bus station, to get where there are things of interest.
But nothing's preventing them now. I mean, they can still cross.
Well, it's a
It's very-
challenging crossing.
Mr.
Yes, sir,
Mayor,
go ahead.
if I may, I think, you know, as an MPO, I think our, the primary responsibility is to find projects that are viable, that are gonna cause or help interconnectivity, transportation type projects, which is what we have to do. But transportation is more than just vehicular transportation, it's also pedestrian transportation and connectivity. And so what we have here is we have an ability to connect two sides and to increase pedestrian connectivity to downtown. That's where this project is so important, to do that in a safe manner. Now, if people decide that they want to stay there, nothing precludes them from staying there now. If they're nicer and they're prettier, they're better built, nothing precludes them at this point from staying there. If they choose to spend some time there and have a picnic there, well, that's their right to do. We're just trying to say, I think with this project, because I just started looking at it last week, is that we're trying to connect two parts of the city that had lost connectivity through a pedestrian route or a bicycle route as well. And that is the essence of what we're trying to do as an MPO. We're trying to create avenues of interconnectivity. This is a project that may do that to two areas that
As a matter of fact,
absolutely.
we have to. I think it's a must.
Absolutely
Yeah.
needed.
Okay, yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm not over it. You're interjecting here and there.
We should talk about the Holland project. 'Cause
Yes, yes,
let's
I
move
think
it
so.
along.
This is just a detail. Oh, my name is Viviana Frank, Abrazo Partners.
Okay.
So, what we think as a way to easing into this project, which is an area that is used to connect east-west and north-south. And it is one of the few areas that does that as a crossroads. We need to ease into the project in a manner that will help train the traffic and ease people into the new design of this area in a manner that can be tweaked and not permanent at first, so that we can take out anything that is not working as we had thought, or a dimension has to change here or there. And the way to do that is through something called tactical urbanism. So, are you familiar with, is everybody, I know most people were at the meeting the other day, but, so just to run through it real quickly, with tactical urbanism, we can interject this project, at least the parts that would start redirecting the traffic and training the traffic in the manner that we would like to see permanently done. So, just some examples. This is basically a crossroads, as you see here, probably more complicated than ours. And what they did is they restriped and they added these bulbed out areas so that people didn't have to cross more than what they had to on the street. They painted these bulbed out areas, and that became part of this this is all painted.
By the way, you can't even see the crosswalks.
No, you can't. They're very faded.
They're very faded and poorly maintained.
Right. So here's another crosswalk between, well, you can see this is a Complete the Streets project, but there used to be 6 lanes in this street. And they put a crosswalk, and again, this is painted, another tactical urbanism project, painted, completely painted.
So if you don't like it, you can lift it up or repaint it.
Repaint it, go back, or tweak it, doesn't work.
Mhm.
These are elements that are being put in on another project, and they paint the Jersey barriers. This is the famous Times Square, where crossroads of the world, not crossroads Tamaulipas, Texas. And this is the tactical urbanism project that was put in. And initially it was gonna be a one-year project, and they've kept it for about 10 years in the same manner, and they've been going through different types of tweaking, and also the permanent project, I think, is gonna be let out in the next year or so. In a diagram, it's build, measure, learn. You test, you plan, you test again, you plan, then you invest. So it's a wheel. You collect the data while this project is in there, you tweak, and then you go into the permanent project.
So going,
It's
Jen,
designed to
or-
find the
or-
balance, that balance between the pedestrian safety and then the vehicle.
So from the standpoint of the MPO then, and if I can follow up on what Dr. Martha was saying, where do we go from here then? And I know, Mr. Salazar, you've stated that, we can then put it back on the technical committee and let them kind of review this, or from y'all's standpoint, the architects, designers, and I know the city council is kind of heading in a different direction, similar but different. But shouldn't we hear from the technical people first? Especially if we're asking for funds first to see what's available and how best we can utilize those funds.
Well, Mr. Salazar is absolutely correct. I mean, this is really a broad brush master plan that came from the community that we've been developing, and we do need to continue our work with TxDOT. We've had some meetings initially.
Can you all meet with that technical committee too?
Well, that's really up to you guys in terms of the actual procedure. We've been meeting through department.
Oh, okay, whichever way, just as long as you all connect.
Sure, no, we do have traffic engineers on board. We just do want to make a note here that a lot of these strategies that you're looking at in this proposal, this very broad brush master plan, have come directly from the Federal Highway Administration. We make reference to some of the literature that's just been let out, beginning with the U.S. Department of Transportation. That's where these ideas have been incubated and have been now handed down. And it also takes us right down to TxDOT itself, the program, their Strategic Highway Safety Plan. Right now, they're looking at a number of projects throughout the state of Texas, and I think we can all agree that when we're driving through Austin on I-35, it's not the most pleasant experience if you're in a car, and probably worse if you're on a bike or if you're a pedestrian. But right now, that's one of, I think, 3 or 4 pilot projects they're looking at connecting east to west.
Is this a TxDOT publication you're showing us right here? This Texas
Yes.
Together on the Road to
Yes.
Zero?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
well, I mean,
so
there
we
it is.
do-
There's strategies to increase pedestrian safety, to, speed mitigation and increasing intersection safety.
Correct.
And as the local TxDOT office, y'all are already all over this, I presume, right?
Actually, there's, from the vision, we're gonna be getting in a short time, a memorandum of guidelines.
Okay.
For not only bicycle, but pedestrian. They're in
Okay.
the process, they're working on that.
Good.
And what I do wanna add is that, if I came across like this is something that TxDOT was not looking into, we're willing to work with it, but there's options that are available, and I know that we're concentrating on 4 blocks, which is not Central Laredo.
Right.
You still have Business 35 San Bernardo, that is a business route right now that we need to work on. There's other avenues we can take. The congestion down there, I think, in dealing with the city traffic engineers, there's other routes or avenues we can take. There's a lot of streets that we can make one way, one direction or the other, to help alleviate that traffic through that. Not just in those 4 blocks, but concentrate beyond those 4 blocks where we can get traffic out of the downtown area and through that intersection a lot quicker. That's an option that we'd also like to explore, working with the city as far as, hey, a lot of those streets are 2-way streets down there in that 4-block area. If we can reroute them and make them one-way, that cuts down on the timing on that interstate.
Very true.
And get them through there. There's a lot of options beyond the 4-block.
So how do we work that then? We have our city
So,
engineer too.
I do want to say one thing, because I'm also the area representative. I sit on the TxDOT Bicycle Advisory Committee up in Austin, and like Mr. Salazar just said, we're currently putting together a technical document. There's a working group, I'm part of that as well, for working with TxDOT right-of-ways. I want to say that Austin, El Paso, and San Antonio have been really doing exactly what you're talking about. It's been a group effort of the MPO with their cities, with TxDOT, and those are becoming very successful collaborations where all of these different entities do come together and are working on these issues citywide.
So we can use the MPO, is that?
We certainly can learn from the cities that have already kind of taken that into consideration. Like Mr. Salas had said, it will be basically a state manual coming down. We expect to finish it this year, and it will be let out next year for all TxDOT offices. But like I said, San Antonio, El Paso, and Austin have already been proactive in looking at these issues for the very simple reason that they're just, you know, they realize where they are when it comes to public safety.
Let me go back to my question again. How do we move this MPO? You know, we know the city's working on it. The MPO now has a good indication as to what we all want.
If you're asking us, we think the MPO could take a lead in that and bring us all together, because essentially we're all kind of here right now.
Okay.
It's possible.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not a,
Do you want to coordinate?
I don't know
with
how
them,
that all works,
Mr.
but that
Salazar?
could be a.
We're currently working with them right now in our office. I think some options have come to us.
Can we put this agenda item then, like every 2 months, to see what progress we're making? Or monthly,
Or
or?
monthly, and also like the reclassification of, or the redesignation of Highway 83, you know, like explore those
Maybe, yeah.
options. You know, we don't necessarily know if it's something that absolutely needs to be done, but the debate certainly needs to be done so that we can, reroute, traffic if need be.
Or have these alternatives that you're talking about that may reduce even further congestion and bringing in traffic to that 4-block area? Okay.
And I don't want to feel like we're kind of behind everybody else here, but the reason that these guidelines are coming forth is because of the very issues that are coming forth right now.
Mm-hmm.
And TxDOT took the stand, said, hey, we need to get some standardizing information for these districts so they can move forward with these items. And that's what TxDOT's doing as a whole.
And the key
We're
is
not the
mobility,
first one.
like you were saying.
Mobility is big, but if you notice here, 2 of the 3 items that you see in that pamphlet were safety, right? And this is an unsafe intersection for pedestrians and bicycles. It just is.
And that's TxDOT's #1 priority,
And that's
safety.
TxDOT's #1 priority right now.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
And just to reiterate what the mayor said, we build it and you're gonna have more pedestrians and there's gonna be more possibilities. So I'm sure we'll figure out a solution.
Yes.
I'd like to add, and one of the concerns also regarding public safety is also there's a lot of people that are unfortunately either homeless or in drug abuse situations, because I've had to call at least 3 or 4 times people that are, I think they passed out or died in front of my office. And every morning that I drive up, I've seen anything from indecent exposure to hanging out, their clothes and everything. So we need to probably have one of the components of the data, maybe from our Laredo Police Department, to see around that area what, other crimes we need to prevent, and not make it a place that is gonna be all shrubby and stuff that might hide
Line of
somebody
sight is
doing
important.
drugs, and you think you're passing through a safety area, and it's not gonna be safe.
Or classify it as a park where we can have designated hours where people can use it, and then after certain hours, people need to move on.
Right, well, we need to look at that for sure, and line of sight is important, but also the number of eyes that are watching is very important. So the more people that are there occupying the space, the safer the space is. Right? Just by the fact that there's more eyes on the street at the time.
Lighting improvements, signage,
Letting.
just basic striping, which isn't there right now. I mean, there's, little things that make a big difference that can make this whole area safer. But to my colleague's point, and this is going a little bit afield, but at some point we need to revisit the fact that I think cities across the United States are realizing what a failed experiment it is to put the homeless shelters in the middle of downtowns that they're desperately trying to rehabilitate. I think we're gonna need to come together with our partners in ending homelessness and incentivize a way for them to relocate to somewhere else where the public and these vulnerable populations are better served.
Anything else? We need to move on. So I guess Vanessa, would you put this, work with Mr. Salazar and of course these folks?
So
To see
you'd
what-
like it as a monthly or?
Yeah, monthly to see what's moving. Okay.
And can you, also just, let us know the status of the improvements to the crosswalks, if you will? Or I guess, if you, after this meeting, if you'll visit with TxDOT to inquire from them when they plan on improving those crosswalks? Just with the
In this
striping.
area.
Yes.
Okay, we have these other, yeah. No further business on this, moving on to, D. A discussion with possible action regarding the use of smooth hot base for all TxDOT overlays specific to the shoulders of roads within the Webb County area. Councilmember Alden.
Yes, sir. So I guess, and I don't know if anyone in the audience can answer this question, it's kind of a technical question, but what's the difference between smooth hot base and the regular overlays that you all have been doing with all of those very pronounced, rocks sticking up?
I can handle that issue. First and foremost, there is not a smooth hot base. I think what you're referring to is bituminous asphalt, or what we refer to as hot mix.
Okay.
So what basically happens is every project that we do has a pavement design, pavement structure based on the amount of trucks or traffic that's on it. We design it for a 20-year, 30-year life. Hot mix is something that creates structure versus flex-based material. So when we do hot mix, a preventive measure that we utilize is to extend the life of that roadway, because through history and experience, we know that these roads are gonna crack. So what the councilman is referring to is called a seal coat. It's a preventive measure. It's an asphalt with a rock on top. What is that for? It's basically to extend the life of the asphalt. If we don't do that, these asphaltic roads will fall apart. We have to rehabilitate the roadways, which is gonna be far more expensive. Just to give you a cost difference between a seal coat and a hot mix, a seal coat runs in the average of about $1.50 a square yard currently here in our district. When you're talking about a 2-inch hot mix, you're bumping up to about $10.50 a square yard. So you can see the numbers game is quite simple.
You say 10.50?
About $10 an average, depending on what the bids come in, a square yard for a 2-inch hot mix. So now you're comparing 2 inches of hot mix versus a seal coat. That's a good $9.5 difference. With the amount of money that we have right now, we try to extend the life and extend the budget with seal coats. It's one of the cheapest preventive maintenance to maintain the roadway and give it more life.
What about just on the shoulders? Because we have a lot of folks using alternative forms of transportation, specifically riding their bikes, and a lot of the road surface is just it'll rattle the fillings out of your teeth. What about just on the shoulders using that smoother?
So again, hot mix is about 2 inches thick. A seal coat is about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch thick. When we build a road, because of the situation that Laredo is with the amount of truck traffic, when we rehab a road, when we build it from the ground up, we finish it off with hot mix for structural stability to carry that load of the trucks. But through time, we have to put a preventive measure on that hot mix to extend the life of it. That's what the seal coat comes into play. Now, there's certain areas where we will not seal coat. Downtown areas with a lot of turning movements, we will not seal coat. But when you're out in open country, Loop 255, US 83, where we have a 10-foot shoulder, we will seal coat. We are quite aware of the bicyclists, and not only in Laredo, but in Del Rio and in Eagle Pass. We've taken avenues where we haven't seal coated the shoulder. It is more expensive for us to come back and use other methods on the shoulder. We've gone as far as reducing the rock that we can utilize down to a grade 4, which is a smaller size than average. With the amount of truck traffic that you have in the Laredo, in order to extend the life of that seal coat, you're gonna have to go with a grade 3 rock. And to reiterate Councilman's statement, that's what's gonna rattle your bike, because the rock is a lot bigger, but it will withstand the load of a 18-wheeler. A smaller rock will not. We are looking into other avenues of materials that we can utilize on the shoulder currently. Again, it comes down to what we have the budget for when we can, but we are well aware of it.
So it appears that they're incompatible. In other words, if it's for a truck route, it's
two different operations. One is to create stability and structure, and the other one is for preventive maintenance, to extend the life of the pavement structure. If I don't do the seal coat, water gets in the cracks, water gets in, ruins the road, I have to rehab the road. It's far more expensive to rehab a road than to seal cut it with a preventive measure to keep the water out.
Okay, so what do you propose?
Well, I propose that we task the Technical Review Board with coming up with some recommendations as it relates to making the shoulders of the roadways more bicycle-friendly. And that can include striping and hot mixes and seal coats and all the other technical things. And that they report back to us at their after their next regularly scheduled meeting.
And bottom line, what you will find when the technical committees come back to it comes down to the payment design of the project that we have in hand. And what we deem necessary at that point, we are aware of the bicyclists, but as far as me trying not to put any kind of preventive measure on the shoulders, I can't guarantee that, but we are providing some other options. We're studying some products that are coming out now because of the increase of bicyclists that we're looking into. Certainly options, but again, it comes down to a budgeting and a payment design of the project.
Can we designate, maybe start somewhere and then build from there?
As it
Like
relates
a
to,
route, you know, the more popular route or the more frequently
I guess
used?
the next, because I don't know when the last time y'all, did preventative maintenance on something, so it doesn't make sense necessarily to send y'all out to go do an overlay on something you've already done preventative maintenance on, but perhaps whatever the next road is, like let's just say there's a stretch of Loop 20 you guys plan on rehabilitating, that whatever that next project is, that alternative transportation be considered as it relates to as the motion, as I stated, as it relates to the striping and the surface materials. And then y'all can just, the TRB can give us some feedback as to what the best processes are.
Can you repeat your motion? I'm sorry. It was,
Sure,
you
yeah.
wanted the TRB to do what again?
My motion is to task the TRB with exploring what types of striping and or surface options that are available for making TxDOT right-of-ways more bicycle and pedestrian friendly.
Is a motion?
Slash safer.
Is there a second? Second? Yeah, I would second that. Discussion?
Okay, I'm just getting a little bit of clarification. The people that bring the items to the technical committee are your MPO staff, which is me. So you're tasking me to look for those solutions, right? With TxDOT, would they be providing any assistance?
I'm sure they would. I'm sure they would.
Okay.
Yeah. I would hope they would, right?
Yeah.
Have they, or have they just
No, not
left you
typically.
to figure it out on
No,
your
the
own?
items that come to the technical committee come from staff, from me.
Uh-huh.
So they review whatever I bring to them.
Right.
But it's not typical that they bring items.
Well, task her to present it to the technical and see what.
Yes. Yeah, and maybe by some stroke of luck, perhaps some TxDOT person might be concerned and give you a hand.
Yes, sir.
Or-
Mayor,
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
What, I'm just trying to, there was a point of discussion here, I just wanted to ask, one quick thing. To Mr. Salazar's point, if we want a more durable road, we use a greater, grade of rock, thereby reducing, drivability. But on shoulders, you're wanting to not do that?
Not to add another layer, I think, smoother.
Because it is the over surface, the seal coat that actually has the rock, is that correct?
Yeah.
That then causes us to be able to have a less decay of the road. through
Longer
wear
lasting
and
road,
tear.
right.
And that seal coat is what's actually causing the vibrations on bicycles.
Right.
And so, to not seal coat is what you're asking?
No, I'm saying I don't really know what, is the solution, but apparently there's other technologies that are out there.
Maybe better tires for the
Uh,
bicycles,
maybe.
maybe.
But the
New tire design.
perhaps the TRB could kick this around and come up with a suggestion, because they're doing this in lots of other communities throughout the state of Texas, where their TxDOT offices are actively encouraging active transit. And so we're saying if there's some options out there, let's hear them and what their costs are, and then hopefully we can put our heads together and find some category of funding so that the next time there's an overlay or a rehab or whatever the technical term is, that you all will, the TxDOT will take that into consideration, because this MPO is designated as a priority and has funded it.
It's gonna be quite a difficult task, and, you know, we'll use the Austin District as an example. The Austin District, of course, a lot more vehicle traffic, pavement designs, a lot more hot mix designs. I don't even believe they seal code in the Austin District. Houston District, because of the amount of truck traffic, everything is concrete pavement. I don't think they use seal codes. But when you come to Laredo District, where if you take away Laredo, we basically become a rural district. We all do have a formula for funding that comes for our projects that are upcoming. Unfortunately, when you get out to US 83s, FM 1472s and whatnot, we just don't have the traffic to pull off a hot mix, nor the budget to pull off a hot mix. So we do go with seal codes. It's kind of our bread and butter as a final surface layer. The way we've been handling it in the city of Eagle Pass and city of Del Rio is we have been meeting with city entities, we've been meeting with city bicyclists. We have designated routes where they've come to us, hey, this is where we bicycle. We are aware of that. We're doing our best. I can tell you right now, Eagle Pass is Loop 480, Del Rio State Loop 79. We do not put seal code on the shoulders.
Well, let me ask you this, can they explore different things,
Yeah.
just explore and then come back, and maybe it may work, may not work?
Do that here. I like that.
Yeah, and that's basically just working with the local folks. You know, we got a call on the bicyclists the other day. There was a bump on the East Frontage Road. Why somebody would take a bicycle on the East Frontage Road with no shoulders is beyond me, where there's a lot of truck traffic, but he had a legitimate concern. We addressed it. We are cognizant, and we are, you know, open to the suggestion of the bicyclists that come. We are supporting them. We do what we can. We did it on toll road 255. Well, it's not a toll, State Highway 255. We didn't seal code the shoulders. But that puts me in a situation where eventually I am going to have to do some type of preventive maintenance.
Okay, and I think we've heard enough. If you don't mind, yeah, we have a long agenda, so I guess call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? None heard, motion carries unanimously, yeah. Thank you. The next item, E, discussion of possible action to direct TxDOT to commence a request for qualifications to design a bike pedestrian facility along the west side of Mines Road from Via San Agustin to IH 35 overpass of FM 1472. Yes, Councilman Algid.
Yeah, I guess kind of akin to the other items, and I guess I'll present this to Mr. Salazar. Do you have a suggestion, because I may not have properly worded this, do you have a suggestion for how we can recreate, if you will, on the west side of Mines Road, which you also expertly executed on the east side of Loop 20? You know, it's got these great hike and bike facilities that go all along that eastern edge of Loop 20. How do we make that happen along Farm to Market 1472 between Villas de San Agustin and I-35?
So what I'm looking at the situation here is you're looking at Mines Road and you're comparing it to Loop 20. Two different scenarios there. It's like completing, it's like you're comparing apples and oranges. If you look at the east side of Loop 20, it's undeveloped area. There is not that many driveways. There is no turn movements east of Loop 20 other than the single intersections. If you're looking at Mines Road,
There is Del Mar, right, though?
you have a street. You have a street crossing, correct?
Right, yeah.
So if you're looking at Mines Road, FM Roadway, you have 60,000, 60,000 vehicles per day, 60% trucks, a lot of driveways in and out.
But it's less commercial, south of Villas de San Agustin. There's still some truck traffic, but it's much less commercial.
A lot of driveways?
From there. A lot of driveways and a lot of sidewalks, well, one giant sidewalk that's already there that people are braving. And again, crosswalks that aren't very well painted and illuminated. However, there are some long stretches that people are, if you look at the Strava heat map, right, they're already riding their bikes there anyway. And so this would be a matter of allowing this, active transit to be able to more fluidly connect using the facilities that are already there, just making them so that they operate more efficiently.
Where would they be traveling from San Agustin to 35 and beyond onto Mines Road, or?
Right, yeah. If you look at the Strava heat map, there's flow of traffic from Bridge 1 down Convent, or I should say up North Santa Maria, and then from Santa Maria, folks skip the tracks and then they go up Mines Road on that unimproved shoulder.
And to be quite candid, the amount of traffic, the driveways, the truck traffic, that is probably something that I would not consider putting a bike trail onto just because of the safety aspect. If this is something
Do we have guidelines, state guidelines that dictate that?
There's certain procedures and guidelines that we have to follow when it comes to the highway, but there's guidelines like the gentleman before us mentioned.
But it's not a highway.
If it's something that the city would want to entertain beyond the right of way, by all means, we could look at it. But as far as me taking a project specifically, I can't just do that or go out for request. I can't do that.
Well, we understand that. Can you all get together maybe? Do you all want to make some time? Because apparently it's detailed and it's.
What it seems like is necessary is that, and without debating whether it's a good idea or not, but perhaps we could task some technical review board, perhaps, to take these new TxDOT, Vision Zero, Active Transit, NACTO, ASHTO, guidelines, and to see if there is a good fit there. Perhaps it's not a good fit there, but let's use some data.
Yes, Dr. Martinez?
Again, going back to what we're trying to do as an MPO is find ways of properly connecting our city and looking at roadways. I think what we have to look at is Mines Road itself needs work, just all of Mines Road. The amount of vehicular traffic coming off of I-35 heading out of town, going to the bridges and vice versa, lends itself to a very large type project where we have to upgrade the whole of Mines Road. Going back, council member, and retroactively making a lot of these changes is probably, expensive, but, and where do we get that funding when we really need to apply some of this funding to the road itself, right, to improving the road? Maybe to TxDOT's point, if we were to look at all of Mines Road as one single project and incorporate your ideas of trying to improve the sidewalks and having connectivity with bicycles and pedestrians at the same time, that's part of a grander scheme where we're really trying to improve the city's flow of traffic to the bridge system and then past it, hopefully one day all the way to Eagle Pass, while at the same time, from a city's perspective, having safe crossings. And so I just think this is an issue that will likely, it can be worked out, but it's going to need to be worked out on a grand scale. And again, applying funds to going back and fixing things that have been done previously is difficult to do from TxDOT's perspective, because I see how they're trying to maximize the amount of revenue that they use for a particular project. But we do have real problems on Mines Road. Traffic counts continue to go up, and we do have pedestrians and bicycles that are using these roads. So we have to do both. We got to fix this roadway, make this roadway a priority, which we're doing on a state level, while at the same time fixing some of these things that
But
are
also
more
too,
local.
Doctor, do we have a parallel road, maybe the blocks further west or south?
There are,
That
and
could
we're
serve.
already, those are city facilities, and we've got, an application in already with,
In other words, why, and I can see it's.
well, because, here's why, because, active transit takes cars off the road. I mean, there's a correlative, it adds capacity to an
50%
already.
of that are
over-
huge trucks, yeah.
Well, not in this stretch. This stretch is much more residential in nature. It's Villa de San Agustin, it's Rancho Viejo, it's the Lowry Farm, all the really older section of Mines Road. I'm not talking about north of Loop 20, to be clear. And the other thing is that there's already all this TxDOT right-of-way that is in between the property line and the sidewalk adjacent to the southbound lanes of Mines Road that's not being used, that some cyclists who are on mountain bikes use anyway, and then you've got some folks that are up on the sidewalk that are using that anyway. But if there was a more efficient use, basically just pave it, just a little paved, the way y'all did for the side of Loop 20, that would there would be a buffer between cars going by, because I think the speed limit there is 60 miles an hour, and it would provide a means of safely getting in and out of there using active transit.
To the mayor's point, though, if we use bicycle avenues parallel to it, it will still serve the same purpose of decreasing the amount of vehicular traffic by getting people to use
Right.
bicycles.
But there's a large rural stretch between Flecha Lane and I-35. It's all, there are no roads to go parallel down. It's just that section of right-of-way, and it's big. It's a big section of right-of-way.
So, do you want to make a motion, or how do we?
Yeah.
Treat it the same way as the last one, maybe?
Yeah, I'll do the
Explore.
motion the same way as the last one, Ms. Guerra. You can supplant the following language, that the technical review board be tasked with determining the feasibility of a shaded bicycle and pedestrian facility along the west side of Mines Road from Villa de San Agustin to the I-35 overpass. It's just, you can use the language that's on the agenda.
It's a
item.
motion and seconded, discussion. None heard, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? None heard, motion carries unanimously. The next item, is it something similar, or?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I know we keep tasking the technical review board, but what does that really mean?
Just means me, that I'll be doing the research.
Yeah, she'll present it and see if there's any
And
feedback.
I'll present whatever I can find to the technical, and then they'll give a recommendation.
How long do you think that process will take you? On top of all
Currently,
your-
with our current staffing limits, probably there'll be a delay. We're
We'll work
at
with you.
4 planners right now.
We'll work with you, Ms. Guerra, if you want to just reach out and let me know how things are coming along.
Sure.
And with regard to the agenda item F, Mr. Mayor, the city has already hired a consultant, traffic engineers who've done this throughout the whole state and have been able to speak TxDOT and coordinate with TxDOT in getting these types of facilities installed. And so I'll table this item, motion to table item F.
Motion, is there a second? Second. Those in favor say aye. Those against? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Table. The next item is the River Road Project. That's item G. Really, do we have anyone here that would want to speak to that? Yes, sir. Mr. Schwab.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the MPO. My name is Jerry Schwebel. Notice you have it on the item on the agenda regarding the River Road project. I'm assuming you're referring to the proposed bill that was submitted by Representative Biederman that eventually has gotten some traction.
Okay, that's another one, but here, yeah, this is more on
Yeah, it's more of a local,
south of the Mines Road, I
yeah,
guess.
basically where Aquero Boulevard dead ends into the subdivision that, land that IBC owns. This would connect to La Bota or past La Bota and go up along the river's edge. And so that's the property that we're.
I wasn't clear in regards to what you had. My area that
Yes.
I focus on was something else. When you call something a river road, that's a big river.
Right.
There's a lot of things going on in that river.
And I think to be clear, I think they call this one Riverview Road, or it has some variation of
Other ones.
river something or another, but that's the
Briefly,
one.
since it kind of lends itself, that's that Biederman, that's that current bill that's being.
Off the Mines Road, and continuation to Maverick County, yes.
Correct, yeah.
Which we've passed a resolution in support of.
I know you did. Thank you for the city council
Yes, sir.
for doing that. So that's something that
Well, thank you all for y'all's leadership on this. I mean, it came to our doorstep
just
in
keep in
no
mind, we're
small
talking
part.
about Homeland Security here, and that's one of the issues. We still have to work with adequate funding. How do we do?
And for the public's sake, it's that bill, House Bill 4306, which incorporates the extension of the Mines Road to Eagle Pass. And that's something that,
Correct.
that we've been pushing
Correct.
for, yes.
If I may, the bill itself is to create a fund for,
Correct.
for security measures, and then the funding will be looked at different, but it's to look at a variety of things, including eradication of carrizo cane and certain other things.
It serves multiple purposes, that's correct.
Multiple purposes, but definitely it's for border enhancements.
Border security.
For security.
Enhancements, and transportation would allow then DPS and Border Patrol and so many other agencies to have access to that. But the bill itself is not necessarily to fund it, but the bill is to have an account that then can look for funding, so.
Correct.
I
Thank you.
do have a small update.
Sure.
On the, did you already get the news too?
No.
No? And, so Mr. Medina went by my office and left a handwritten note that he and Albert Mueller had spoken, and that it sounds like he's gonna be able to obtain 100% of the right-of-way. I know we already had commitments from IBC, from the school district, from all the landowners up and down, except for this one, like acres worth of right-of-way through this one section of Albert Mueller property. And I haven't decoded yet or followed up with Mr. Medina on what that actually means, but it sounds like there's been something positive. We're supposed to meet later on this week so that he can fully update me, and as he does, I'll, at the next MPO meeting, let you all know, or maybe he'll come by and let us know.
This is on the river road itself, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that report. Next, discussion with possible action on the HR Ruthinger Road. I see Mr. Luis Perez Garcia. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Committee Chair, and MPO Committee members. This is an update on the Acharo Ruthinger Road. I'd like to advise you that our consultant is working with the environmental scientists to put together the unified document that is required to go forward. We're trying to shorten the timeline that particular section in the environmental project has been assigned. We're trying to shorten that as much as we can. We are planning on the required public workshop, the public meetings that have to be held. We're tentatively scheduling those meetings for mid-June. And that was what I wanted to bring forward.
Yeah, how many public meetings, what venues, do you know which ones?
I believe the venue that we're proposing at this point is the one that has been used recently with some success, is the TAMIU facility. Success Center, I believe is what it's called, Sabarini Success Center. That's where we're proposing to do the public.
Do we have any on the west side?
Yeah, why not do any at the Faskin Rec Center or Mueller Elementary?
Those are great suggestions. We'll bring that forward. Maybe the Faskin Center would be a more appropriate location, given that this project is going to be affecting that area.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a note of that.
Please, if you would.
So we're looking at 2-3 more months, or how's?
No, we're talking about mid-June.
Oh, mid-June?
For the first public meeting?
For the public meeting that's required, yes, sir.
Okay, and when you do tie down either Mueller Elementary or the Faskin Rec Center, would you mind just giving me a heads up as to the date as well? And if you need any assistance with making the Fasken Rec Center available, we're happy to do that.
Given that that's a city facility, that may be the most appropriate
Yes, sir.
location for the type of meeting.
The school district has been very amenable as well as it relates to
Understand.
using Muller, but whatever is, I guess, more feasible.
We
in
will
your
discuss with the
estimation.
consultant the possibility of having this on the west side at the Fasken location or at the Muller School location. And hopefully we'll be talking to you about
So
possibly
is this gonna be
scheduling that.
publicized, Facebook, newspaper,
I don't know what the requirements are. Maybe Mr. Salazar could lend a little bit of information regarding the requirements of the public meeting
yeah, I
discussion.
would say the trucking, and I mean, there's tons of it, you know,
Yeah.
went to two
Yeah.
ribbon cutting. It's incredible, you know, the amount of business and companies coming to that part of
Correct.
town, yeah.
Roberto, do you want to add something to that?
Yes, Roberto Rodriguez with Texas. As far as the NEPA process, we gotta get out of those public meetings and public hearings. What we have done is our actual projects that we recommend is to start doing some MAPO with the property owners specifically impacted, and that can help expedite the process.
So that's the process of notifying, and that there would be some workshops that were used through the media and various other outlets to get the public aware of the fact that this workshop is being held. That's all I have to
Do
do.
we also invite,
Laredo
The
Motor
impacted
Carriers
areas,
Association,
no, like the cable people, you know, people that can actually utilize or.
Utilities companies.
Yeah, utilities,
by all means.
yeah.
Laredo Motor Carriers Association, Alpha, real estate brokers, you know, the stakeholders.
Whoever has used.
Whatever suggestions you have, I'll poll you, gentlemen, and
Okay.
try to come up with the appropriate folks to send an actual invitation to.
Great.
And ladies, I'm sorry.
Okay, is
Didn't
that
mean it
basically
to be
it?
that way.
But once we get done with these public hearings, we're looking by December, do you think that we should be done with this phase and start construction soon?
TxDOT had initially asked for a 2-year time period. That's why I'm saying we're trying to shorten that phase. We think we'll be ready by December to move forward with that portion of the document. However, TxDOT had requested that we have a 24-month period in there for the environmental review to take place in the, out of the Austin
So
office.
construction is still 2 years away?
So does it make sense then to tie down all these Category 7 funds for a project that's so far out? I mean, what, can we reappropriate a portion of them with the expectation that other Category 7 monies are going to be rolling in subsequent years so that we're not just all tied down on a project that's not happening?
So let me clarify the 24 months. That's the initial time frame that was given for the environmental assessment clearing. Is it gonna take 24 months? Probably not. You are correct. So that's just a time frame that we've given you, but it wasn't a directive, is it will be 24 months.
And member Alco, that's a relatively short timeline, given how these
Yeah,
things
and knowing how
are.
things
And to
work,
jeopardize funding on this
very risky.
vitally important project to possibly fund or throw in as a caveat, as a carrot to make something else a little bit more attractive. This is a really vital program.
Oh,
think,
I
to take
agree,
money
and
away.
I'm not good, I won't, there's no debate
I understand.
there.
Yeah, it's
I'm
taken
just
so long.
looking at the flow of these funds. They roll in, you know, every year, and so if we're still not, you know, ready to, you know, break ground, well then, we could spend proportionally that which is expected to roll in the following year so that we're not also tied down.
I understand.
That's my hypothetical. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do.
I will tell you that everyone that's working on this is hoping to shorten the time that we're actually spending to get to construction. So
Councilman
I know
Alden,
we're all
keep in mind
committed
it
to
took
that.
years, so you didn't secure these funds? I mean, it took literally 3-4 years, I think.
Maybe I'll say,
Correct.
one in the hand is where, we don't know what's coming, but we know we have this.
Yeah, so it's, and your point is well taken, you know, but you know how things work. Things, if you distort it somewhat, it unravels.
Right.
We all want to see it sooner than later.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Next, Let's see, status report by TxDOT on the outer loop alignment study. Yeah, any progress there?
Yes, Roberto Rodriguez with Texas. Good afternoon. Yeah, we're still working with the consultant Jacobs on the outer loop alignment. We've been having several meetings defining the design criteria that we're gonna be using for the project. They already started working with the utility companies to develop their constraints map. They presented a couple of alternatives on the south connection to US 83. Had to make some modifications based on the future
Yeah, but that's
extension
not public yet, right? I mean, you're still working.
Yes,
you know,
we're still working on it, and hopefully.
Obviously, people want to make it public so they can plan accordingly, like the developers and.
Correct. No, it's not public yet. It's still in the works. It's a
Okay.
draft more right now. And they presented a memorandum of all the stuff they found from the previous study. They kind of bring it up and say, you know, this is what we found from everything that was done previously. And hopefully, we're gonna have another draft alignment soon, so that we can provide additional comments to the consultant.
Is there any way that they could come to the next council meeting and provide us with a little more technical data, just so we can draw a visual?
Yeah, just an update, what they're doing, what things, and we can give it a little more time.
Okay.
Okay,
No
then.
problem.
Thank you. That's the status report by TxDOT on ongoing projects.
So did you want them to come to the council or here?
Here.
Here,
Here.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you said council, but it's commission here. Mr. Rodriguez, welcome.
Good afternoon, Carlos Rodriguez for the record.
Sure.
Wanted to talk over a little bit of the projects. The very first one will be the Kansas City Railroad. On that one, you probably noticed the percent is almost the same as it was last time. We have some concerns or some things that we're working with the contractor to bring it to completion. So the thing is, the completion date, we're anticipated around July. The IS-35.
I'm sorry, what's this for? Kansas City Southern what now?
Loop
The railroad, the bridge in front of the office.
You're off.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about it?
They're working on the lighting and the signing, and that's what's basically holding up the completion.
Lighting to get people onto
No,
Loop
no,
20 or off of Loop 20?
Illumination. The illumination and the traffic signs.
Oh, for the overpass?
For the overpass project.
Light post, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next one I want to discuss is the IS-35 project. That one is moving forward nicely towards the tail end of this year. We should be having completion. We've been having concrete slab placement for the bridge and for the placement of the roadway, concrete roadway also.
And what mile marker are we at?
We're at 35 and Loop 20.
So how many connectors would we have? 5 done already? Yeah.
This is the two bridges that are flying over the interstate
but-
right
yeah.
now, over the railroad.
But currently we have 3 connectors?
We have 3 direct connectors. We have bridge, direct connector number 5 that's gonna be bidding towards the end of this fiscal year. That is the one that takes it from Loop 20 down south to 35. That's gonna leave us in essence with 4 more direct connectors to
Okay. Thank you.
And that one goes out for bid when, I'm sorry?
What's the date?
December 29th.
December 29th.
December this year.
That is the one that's gonna fly over the I-35 railroad underpass. We're gonna fly over it and direct connect over to Loop 20, all in one project.
So coming back to Laredo, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Next one I want to discuss is basically,
Yeah, let me ask you this, yeah, future plans for the other 4 directors, I mean, we're still not even there yet? or-
Currently, they're under design authority, where we got the design, they're unfunded at the time. But the design project is in there. We have a design authority from that project all the way out to milepost 28 along Interstate 35, which includes Arroyo and widening out to 3 lanes. We have development authority, and unfortunately, some of those are not funded.
What needs to take place for them to become funded?
I don't know that I can say that in this meeting, but basically, the good thing is that they're designed, they're in place, 3 lanes all the way, and it's just a matter of finding the appropriate funds to fund those projects.
So not funding for the design of it, but funding for the construction?
Funding for the construction, that is correct.
Right. Okay, got it. So, well, I guess we'll visit at some other point in time.
One thing that we do to remember that, infra grant that we put in, it's for some of these projects that are under design as well. I
Yeah,
think
but
they
the
were
infra
submitted.
grant is, yeah, that was, do we have it here? And if not, briefly, since you mentioned it, it's already in play. We're going to Washington. We're gonna go see some of those folks.
It has been submitted, Mayor, I think, and then we caught in the additional 65 million for Loop 20, is that correct, Robert? On the grant application?
Correct.
Yeah, and that's really to cover, yeah, international is done, so it would be Shiloh, University.
The interchanges are Shiloh, Del Mar, University, Jackman, and the airport.
And the what now?
The airport.
Yeah, but I thought the airport,
If
I
you
thought
can-
Del Mar Airport were like a second phase.
If I may, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
There was a certain, we were only doing three,
Right.
the expansion of three of the overpasses as far as the widening. But you're saying that we asked for an additional 20%?
Yeah, if
I mean, $20 million?
If you
What-
can-
What did that do to our match? Because the reason why we liked it is because we were matching pretty high, we were matching over 65%. So what did that do to the match percentage that we're giving, in this grant process?
If you can recall, there was $140 million that has been funded for the Loop 20 project, which includes the 5 overpasses at Del Mar Airport, Shiloh, TAMU, and Jackman.
University.
Jackman,
Yeah.
right. We didn't have enough for the frontage roads, so then we discussed here in this meeting, we could back up and start up north and work our way south, but it was decided at that point that we were gonna wait on the grant applications to see if we could get the remaining $65 million. At that time, it was decided that if we do get that grant money, that we would start north and work our way south.
Right.
From there.
Okay, so I'm a little confused, because I thought, the infra grant covered, the next three, correct? Which is Shiloh, a university, and.
Currently, the way we have the money,
Jackman.
currently, the way with the
No,
MPO
not
has the money.
Jackman, Del Mar.
Currently, the way we have the money allocated, we have all five interchanges funded, roughly between 20 and 25 million. We just didn't have the money for the roadways, the frontage roads.
Yes.
That's what we were missing. And at that point, I think we had made a motion to take.
But the frontage
take the
roads
money.
on that section, right? From,
Yes, yes.
From
that is
Shiloh to Del Mar.
Correct, on the north, coming south.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's where the infra grant applies, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
on that project, making it one whole big project.
Yeah,
one
because
time,
we were
catch
waiting on the environmental and you all to clear with United.
Yeah, currently on that
Kitchen
project,
area.
we're working with environmental, which is what Councilman Alge wants them to come present where we're at on that process of acquiring the right of way. If you can recall previously, that schematic and environment cleaning was under Dannenbaum Engineering. Since then, we've taken it back and we're revisiting that schematic, making sure it's gonna work for us, and moving forward with that. But, as Councilman mentioned, he would like to have an update and we can do that next week.
Okay, so the infra grant, what's the local match?
I don't recall the local match numbers, do you recall them?
I don't recall the numbers.
I
Okay,
can
can
get
you
those numbers.
provide that information? We're heading to, Washington, and I wanna be clear as to.
I'll have those to you before 5 today,
No, that's fine. I mean, we're going to
4:30.
Washington,
4:30.
16th, 17th, I think, of June. Yeah, okay, thank you. Just go ahead, please, Mr. Lewis.
Okay, getting back to 1472, that's gonna be kicking off again on the 28th, so we can bring completion to that project. This is the seal code. On 359,
I'm sorry, when do you expect that to be completed?
when? The seal code
The
will be,
overlay, or the seal coat rather on.
the 1472?
Uh-huh.
The little section should probably take a couple of days to start on 28th, then do this, we have to wait, we do the seal code, and we wait 14 days, and we do the striping, so by later part of June, the whole thing, we should be out of there with crews and everybody.
Okay, thank you.
The next project is 359 from Laredo city limits to Duval County. That one is 45% complete. We've also, this one has a.
It's gonna have that
assisted
center turning lane throughout?
It will.
So
Right.
just one lane each, one, 3 lanes overall, I guess, right? One coming east, another west?
Yeah, right now, basically what we have is just working with the existing mill and inlay. The final configuration will be like what you're stating.
Okay.
Kind of like sections of Zapata Highway, along Highway 83 where you've got northbound, southbound, and you've got a
Like going towards,
space in the middle.
right. next thing will be basically US 83 North. That's 3.4 miles south of 44 to Demet County line. That one, we also anticipate to start construction the day after the holiday, which is May 28th.
Okay.
What sort of,
Reconstruction.
yeah, what sort of improvements do we anticipate to see on that project?
Basically, that's the reconstruction of the roadway, and basically going in there and putting traffic on one side, doing one half of it, shifting, and do the other half.
What highway is this, Carter?
US 83 North.
US 83 North?
Yeah, basically from the checkpoint, from 44, basically where the checkpoint is at, Border Patrol, all the way up to the county line,
3.4 miles.
south of 44. That's muscle menos for the checkpoint is south of the checkpoint.
3.4 miles. $50 million for 3.4 miles.
No. That's the beginning of the project. You go north all the way up to the county line.
Okay, how many miles is that?
What is it, about 20?
Okay.
Yeah, how about this other project that we were talking about, the Alpha Mines Road that, you know, to accommodate, big trucks, you know, overloads, what's the name of that road? It's got a common name, it didn't come to me now, but I thought y'all were gonna work on that pretty quick.
Which roadway is this, Mayor? Coming from where?
Yeah, it's at a small little community, the intersection there of Mines Road.
Peñitas.
Who?
Peñitas,
Peñitas,
3338.
right.
That one has not started yet, that's why I have not
Okay,
discussed it.
but is it starting soon? Because that's gonna help, it's gonna take it to, the
We've
Columbia
had
Road. Correct?
well, we had the letting,
Okay,
successful contractors, centers in Colombia. And as far as the pre-con and start date, I don't have at this point.
okay, that's fine, but it's coming, yeah.
Yes, it's
I mean,
it's been bid out and they've awarded the contract.
Okay, do we have any other, reports?
No, that
So
should be
Rodriguez, thank you, Carlos.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. And also the RMA, I don't see the RMA folks here.
They left, I think, the documents, sir, in our binder.
Okay. Okay, then, do we have any other business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved, seconded, discussion, none heard, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None heard, okay. Those in favor, all those against, motion carries, thank you, thank you. So